Alright guys, today I want to talk about something that to me is the biggest miss in all of health and fitness, longevity, performance, whatever you want to say. It's one of those things that people, they want to go in and they want to get a good workout. They want to perfect their nutrition. They want to work on things that they think are extremely valuable, but quite frankly, probably are not having as big of an impact on their overall fitness as they might think. This is something that I've come to look deeper and deeper into as I pursue my journey in fitness and my journey in learning and teaching other people, which is the importance of breathing and why breath is so important. There's a saying, you are what you eat. The reality is that that's not really accurate. You are what your hormones tell you to be. And depending on the hormones that you have in your system at any given point, you could be somebody very drastic. Very drastically different, excuse me. You can see bodybuilders as an example of this, where you have these guys who are just very normal, average looking guys. All of a sudden they start taking various hormones and they become somebody completely different. Their personalities change, their bodies change, their minds change. Who they are changes because of the hormones that are in their body. That's really what we're looking to achieve with workouts. That's really what we're looking to achieve with nutrition, is creating the hormonal balance that's going to get you to your goals. But no meal that you eat, no workout that you perform is going to have as big of an impact as just focusing on your breathing. The average person, when they breathe, they create excessive levels of cortisol. If we were to take a needle and inject you with cortisol, you'd be somebody very different. You would be bloated, you'd be inflamed, you'd be at a higher risk of diseases, you would be irritated, you'd be aggravated, you'd have a hard time sleeping, you wouldn't get good workouts, you'd be low in energy. All these things would come just from excessive levels of cortisol for excessive periods of time. Cortisol does play an important role in keeping you healthy, keeping you fit, but the average person, just because of the way that they breathe, they produce too much cortisol. And what happens is that chest breathing here is really, in nature, it's reserved only for when you're being chased by a lion, when you're being chased by a bear, and you need that last little bit of energy to get you there. And when that occurs, you need to release cortisol. But that should shut off when you're done outrunning that bear or outrunning that lion or whatever it might be. For the vast majority of people, we breathe here all day long, and that never shuts off. There's what's called a feedback loop. That what's called clavicular breathing. As those collarbones elevate and then depress every time you take a breath, that activates cortisol. Ironically, cortisol also activates clavicular breathing. Okay, and so if you wanted to lean out, if you wanted to get stronger, if you wanted to perform better, step one is to reduce your cortisol levels, no matter what. Step one is to reduce your cortisol levels. And if you're breathing with your chest, you would be naturally have excessively high levels of cortisol. Okay? So the way that we do that, the first thing and the easiest thing to do is just breathe through your nose. For those of you guys who can do this, especially if you're standing up, if you breathe through your nose, we have a tendency of activating our diaphragm as we breathe through our nose. Just a little bit of restriction as that air goes through those sinuses causes your diaphragm to pull downward instead of pulling your chest upward with that breath here. Okay? And ideally, we want to be able to breathe straight down into our abdomen. If you're laying down on your back, you should experience that abdomen elevating with an inhale, with your inhalation, and then dropping with exhalation. Okay? It's a good drill to practice, and just practice on a regular basis. But a simple key is anytime you're focusing on your breath, try breathing in through your nose. Okay? And it's kind of a interesting phenomenon that occurs, is going back to the idea of breathing through your nose, is that one of the traditions in almost every hunter-gatherer society that we know of is to shut your mouth of your babies when they're sleeping. And they're training their babies how to breathe through their nose, so that way they could stay in that calm, relaxed state and that cortisol levels stay low. which actually helps when they're hunting. It helps when they're running. It helps when they have to keep that heart rate high. You have an extra gear just simply by breathing to that nose. There's a reason for that, which is that once you get into that chest breathing, your muscles start shutting down. Or if you can maintain nasal breathing throughout your cardio, throughout your workouts, that is ideal. You'll be able to perform better. It might be more challenging at first, but over the long run, you'll definitely be able to perform better. The other thing that we do drills with breathing, for me personally, I probably practice my breathing as much as I lift weights. And it sounds kind of crazy because I grew up lifting weights. I started lifting weights when I was 10 years old. Over time, I realized that wasn't as important as some of the other things that I now focus on more, one of which is breathing. And so I'll do things like box breathing. And box breathing is a simple, you generally start off with a 4 count. So it's 4 count on the way in, hold for a 4 count, exhale on 4 count, breathe through your nose if you can, hold for a 4 count, and then follow that back through again. You could do alternate nostril breathing where you do 1 cycle there, and then you do the opposite nostril, just covering up that opposite nostril, breathing in on a 4 count, holding for a count, exhaling for a 4 count, holding for a 4 count, and then switch sides. Okay? There are theories around why the alternate nostril breathing works. One is that it just creates more restriction, and the more restriction, the greater the activation of your diaphragm that occurs. Another is that there's receptors in your nasal passage that detect oxygen, and when they detect oxygen, they increase it's called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is just something that increases the elasticity of your veins and your arteries, allows those arteries to pull in more air. One of the things that does happen too as well, and this is kind of one of the things that seems a little bit counterintuitive, but oxygen roams through your blood but stays out of your cells until carbon dioxide has hit a certain level of deficit. Right, and so until you've gotten rid of some of that oxygen and it's converted over to carbon dioxide, then your body wants to uptake as much of that oxygen into the cells, and less oxygen gets stored in your circulatory system. So very commonly, just by creating an oxygen deficit, you could oxygenate maybe, I don't know, those cells where you're allowing the oxygen to actually enter into the cells themselves. A lot of times people will feel like this euphoric sense once they get to this point. The box breathing, what we're doing is we're creating a deficit of oxygen where your body's now forcing oxygen into the cells. With your box breathing, you could just simply increase it by a second and try to increase the amount of time that you're holding or that you're pulling air in. So it'd be a 5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. And then you could up it to 6, 7, 8, whatever you feel like you're capable of. It's something that's trainable. Your breath is something that's trainable. And it should be something that we're training on a regular basis. And unfortunately, the average person just isn't. There's a lot of numerical values you guys could do to different breath work. They're all designed to do the same thing, which is create a deficit of oxygen, create a buildup of carbon dioxide. That buildup of carbon dioxide allows for greater utilization of the oxygen in your system. Easy enough, okay? You could also do things like the Wim Hof method, which I'll leave a link for the Wim Hof method in there too as well. Wim Hof, even when he's talking about his method, he has a great line where he says, somebody asks him, how is it that I know I'm doing it right? He says, just breathe, mother effer. And which is really it. You're just finding ways to train your breath. Like if you ask me, what's the best way to train? Well, there's 1,000,001 different ways to train. The big key is that you're doing it. The big key is that you're putting in the work. Same thing happens with your breath. Just put in the work and it'll happen. Okay? Another good one that you could do that's fun, I do this every time I walk my dog, is I will take a few moderate breaths and then do a full exhale, see how many steps I could take before I have to inhale. And you should be able to recover that breath within three breaths, okay? And it should only be nasal breathing by the time you return back to breathing again. This is what's called the Bolt test, if you guys wanted to look that up. But it is a great way to increase the amount of oxygen that your body is able to utilize. You might be surprised how much it will help your cardio. You might be surprised how much that will help every other aspect of your life. And the other key thing is it just keeps your cortisol levels down. And there is just something nice to focusing internally. We have a tendency of focusing externally a lot in our lives. By focusing our attention to our breath, you can start to focus internally. You can go a little bit deeper than this too as well. And in hypnosis and meditation and things like that, they say that the breath is the gateway to your subconscious mind. If you guys believe in that type of stuff, that's fine. If not, not a big deal. But the concept just is that your breath is the one thing that you do where if you think about it, you do it, and if you don't think about it, you do it. So it has one foot in that part of your nervous system that you actually think about, and one part in that autonomic nervous system, that nervous system that you don't really think about, things like your heart, your lungs, things like that, your kidney functions. And there's a concept that by focusing on your breath, it acts as a gateway to focus on all those other things. Another thing too is understanding gratitude, and nothing makes you more grateful for your breath than when you've lost your breath. And to me, there is something to just focusing on being able to hold that breath a little bit longer, being able to push a little bit further, being able to create that buildup of carbon dioxide that feels a little more comfortable, and you get a little more comfortable with it, that makes you appreciate every breath that you take from then on out. It's just something to take away. Hopefully you guys got something from this. To me, if I had to list all the things in level of importance, this is number one. It's going to help you sleep better. It's going to help you work out harder. It's going to decrease your appetite. It's going to make you crave healthier foods. It's going to make you respond better to your kids, to your family, to your loved ones. It's going to make you respond better to stressful situations. It's going to upregulate your immune system, all sorts of things. To me, this is key. This is where I would start if I had it to do over again. Best of luck to you guys. I hope you guys are all healthy. I hope you guys are all well. Have a great day.